We can't draw what we haven't observed. In this video, we'll be looking at how to observe certain details and use those to reference other parts of our drawing that we haven't yet drawn and to build an accurate framework for the detail. So I start with these closest roofs, and they give a really interesting angled frame which I thought really sets off compositionally the roofs of the buildings behind in the very picturesque English seaside town of Whitby, where we spent a lovely weekend. Now, the thing I want to emphasize in this video is as we progress our drawing, as we establish things such as the pitch of a roof, the top point of a roof, the base of a chimney, the top of a chimney, the corner of a building, the corner of a roof, that we note where those are, and then when we draw around it, we measure things in relation to that point that we've already drawn. So we use what we've drawn as a reference to guide us into where to put our pen to start parts that we're about to draw. And particularly, I find in these sort of somewhat aerial shots where there are lots of roofs that often just look like a jumble, I find this is a really helpful approach. It's a bit like creating a jigsaw puzzle and then putting it together, but it's just measuring all of these spots off against each other. So when I need to draw a chimney, I'll look to see what's directly below it or above it or to the left or to the right. What parts of my scene that I've already drawn align with this part that I have to draw now? And that helps me start the chimney or finish the chimney in the correct place. So, and I use my pen for this as well. I don't just use my pen to measure perspective angles, but I use it a lot to measure alignment. So if, for instance, I've done the pitch of a roof and that top corner is a useful measuring point, I'll measure with the pen, not the distance, but the angle or the spacing away from that reference point. Now, in this case, I decide to do a fair bit of work on the roof textures from all the tiles because it is a very dominant part of this scene. And if this was going to be a coloured drawing, then certainly the orange and terracotta colours would be very prominent. But this is just going to be black and white, so I wanted to indicate it a bit more with drawing some of those lines to indicate the various tiles and rows of tiles. And I find that referencing off what I've already drawn, working out points of alignment is particularly helpful once I've done maybe this much already. And so there are lots of reference points to use. And when I'm doing things that are some distance away from where I started, so if I try to draw this whole thing all at once and to draw some of those furthest points at the start, it would have been very easy to have placed them either too far or too close. So I find moving out bit by bit from where I start, carefully referencing what I'm about to draw with what I've already drawn, and of course cross-checking that with the reference photo, I find a very good way of maintaining accurate distances in a proportional sense. I mean, obviously you don't need to do your drawing the same scale, the same size as your reference drawing. You can make it smaller or larger, but it's getting those proportions of distances correct. And there I've just put the top of the river in, which you can't. I've pushed up my reference photo in this take, so you can't actually see, but there is a river on the other side, a river bank on the other side of those top houses. And now there's the individual tiles on this closest roof. I found having these angled roofs right in the front actually made it really hard to get a sense of up and down and the correct angles because I'm so used to having perpendicular sides and a horizontal base to kind of get a sense of measurement off, that having these crazy angles really made it difficult to draw the angles that I needed from this drawing. But I tried to stick to the method all the time of referencing off what I'd already drawn. And so again, as often happens with drawings, The important part with something like this is to go slowly at the start, slowly, carefully, and accurately. And you'll find that as you've got more done, you establish more reference points. There are more corners and more windows or chimneys or tops of roofs that you can use to measure, and so you can more confidently place new parts of the building that you haven't drawn more quickly. And just add a bit of shade with line work, and that's it.
Hi there, I'm Stephen Travers. So when I'm drawing, I'm not just looking at that part of the reference photo that I'm copying at that point and at that point in my drawing, but I'm constantly looking back at other parts of the reference photo that I've already drawn, as well as other parts of my drawing that I've already drawn. And I'm all the time drawing these imaginary lines on my paper and on the reference photo, looking to see what lines up with that line, either horizontally or vertically, or even sometimes horizontally at 45 degrees. And I'm using these imaginary alignment lines to help me put the new things that I haven't yet drawn in the right position for the whole composition. And I find this is a tremendous way to help me be much more accurate, and particularly in a fairly complex composition with lots of parts that need to go together. If I try and draw the whole thing at once, particularly sort of the outline parts too early, I can find that I don't leave enough space, say, to get all the windows in, or I leave too much space and I have leftover space. So I find this a tremendously helpful system to constantly use other parts of the drawing or the photo to align the parts that I'm drawing at that point. I hope that's been helpful. If you haven't used this way of thinking much, then please give it a go. It might take a little more time at first, but as is the case with anything we practice, it gets faster and we get better at it. The most important thing, though, of course, is to have fun when we draw. And I'll see you next time. Bye.